Ingram Library subscribes to over 60,000 journals in over 300 databases. We do use a few major database companies like EBSCOhost and ProQuest, so many of our databases look very similar and provide a lot of the same functions. But it's important to note that each database covers a different set of journals and that there's not a whole lot of overlap between them. So selecting the right database is an important first step in finding the best resources on your topic. We'll illustrate this with an example like child abuse. So there's lots of ways to look at child abuse. You could look at it from a psychology point of view, like what are the mental effects of child abuse on a kid? You could look at it from a nursing perspective and how do you recognize the signs of child abuse if a kid comes into your clinic or your ER. You could look at it from a literature point of view and looking at ways that child abuse has been depicted in literature and maybe comparing, say, Jane Eyre to Harry Potter or some other example. You could look at it from a historical point of view because the things that we consider child abuse nowadays have not always been considered child abuse. So you could look at it back when we were sending kids in coal mines. You could look at it from a political point of view. A lot of our allies have different ideas on when a person is a child versus an adult and what sort of rights that child should have. You could look at it from an education point of view. Say you're a teacher and you want to know what are your legal responsibilities for reporting and recognizing child abuse and how can you help a kid at home when you only see them at school. So as an academic library, we recognize that people are going to want to look at all of these questions, and usually they're only focusing on one thing. If they're interested in how our political allies deal with child abuse and how that affects humanitarian aid and so on and so forth, then they pretty much don't care about Jane Eyre and Harry Potter. They really want to know about the political fallout. So we want to provide the resources that they need without having to provide a lot of things that they don't need that they then have to sort through. We recognize that, and what we've done is we've split up our journals into the different disciplines, the different majors on campus. So we have all of our education stuff, all of our nursing stuff, all of our history stuff, and so on. And the databases recognize this too. So what they've done is they've supported us in that endeavor by giving us different databases that cover different disciplines, different subjects. They look at the same topic. You can see child abuse in lots of different places, global warming in lots of different places, but each of these databases will look at it from solely the perspective that that database is designed to cover. So ERIC, for instance, only covers education journals. It's not going to look at literary criticisms. CINAHL is only going to cover nursing stuff. MLA, International Bibliography, is only going to have those literary criticisms. It's not really worried about the real world unless it's been reflected in literature. So what this does is allow academics to choose what they're interested in and go to just those resources. It also allows researchers to dive very, very in-depthly into those resources. But we know that some people don't quite know what area they're starting with or what discipline they're starting in as they begin their research. So EBSCOhost actually also provides a database called Discover Galileo, which sort of searches a little bit of all of these things. So it can be a good place to start because you're likely to find something on your topic from your perspective, but it's not going to cover all of the education stuff. So if you're looking at your topic from an education point of view and you really want the best resources and you don't want to have to sort through anything else, you're far better off going into an education database like ERIC than something like Discover Galileo. To get to our different databases, you can go to the Databases and Galileo tab and click the link, or you can go to Research Tools and then Databases and Galileo. The first box here is the Discover Galileo search, which is that very broad search that covers all the topics a little bit but nothing very well. Or for a much better, more thorough search, you can scroll down and find a listing of our different databases by subject. Start by selecting the discipline that would cover your topic from a point of view that you are interested in. A good rule of thumb for choosing the right discipline is thinking about where on campus would you go to learn about that research topic. For example, if you're researching autism and you specifically want to know how to reach those students in a classroom, you might choose the education databases. If you're more interested in how it's diagnosed, you might go to nursing or psychology, and if you want to know how it affects the family unit, you might choose sociology. For each discipline, we've selected what we think are the best databases for that topic. So for instance, if I chose to look at autism from a psychology perspective, I would click on psychology. And that takes me to our psychology research guide. This is created by our psychology liaison, Andrea Stanfield, and in it she's recommended the databases that she thinks are the best. And they are the best databases. This is the American Psychological Association's database, PsycInfo. But on top of that, we also have the EBSCOhost database, Psychology and Behavioral Sciences, which is basically their collection for libraries that can't afford the actual PsycInfo, as well as Psychology Journals, which is ProQuest version of PsycInfo as well. If you're looking for a specific database, we do have them listed back on our Databases and Galileo page across the top of the page. So for instance, if your professor recommends a certain database or you've heard of a particular database, for instance, like JSTOR is a really big historical and sociological database, you can click on J and JSTOR is listed alphabetically there. If you need help selecting the best database, we recommend again checking the research guides for that discipline that would cover your topic, as well as contacting the individual librarians who are on that research guide, and they can help recommend things for you too.